What up, invaders? It is April 7th, and we are going to take a look at what happened in the stock market today. Going to start off with the S&P 500 SPY index here. So, starting off today, we filled that gap that we had to the upside. Um, let's start out on the 30-minute chart. So, as you tell down here, we retested the low from yesterday, 443.47. This candle right here, low of 443.53, just barely held above that candle from the previous day, and then we catapulted off of that very hard. And where it catapulted yesterday, it found resistance at 448.90 basically. And once it got this double bottom today, it bounced up, broke through that, and went and filled the gap up there easily. And let's zoom in a little bit. So it filled that gap. It pulled back, tested the 9 EMA, and then went back up past 450. And then we ended up just taking a bit of a dump at the end of the day. But we still held above the, here on the 5 minute, we have the 200-day EMA. We still held above that. So that's a solid break. We held the 200 EMA on multiple time frames. So on the 15 minute, we couldn't quite hold on the 15 minute, this white line here, but we tested it and bounced off pretty hard off of that. Then on the 30 minute, you can see that we did hold that, and that 30 minute 200 EMA is pretty huge because back here you can see where this rally really started off was once it resisted that once, found support at 429, SPY did, and then when it broke that, it just kept ripping. And so far, it's only broken that. I mean, it's held that basically as support, and at 445.11, that key level that we have, and now that 200 EMA is right on that key level, so you can tell that indicator is pretty solid. And every time we've dipped under that, it's had a strong bounce, and the two times it really did dip under that, it really bounced off, so that formed that double bottom that we saw at the end of the day, and yeah, it just launched us into the end of the day, right through the gap, and the only reason we couldn't go any higher was because the NASDAQ was holding us back pretty hard. So we ended up closing below this level that we resisted yesterday at 448, just barely under it. We closed at 448.77. So it's still a really strong end of the day. It really dumped about 5 minutes before close, unfortunately, but SPX still closed just barely above 4,500, so that's pretty bullish. Um, I would say tomorrow we will look to see if we can hold. I mean, it depends on if we gap up or down or not, but I would say that 448.90 level is pretty important. If we can hold that, get back up about above 450, and then close a candle above that 200 EMA on this 15-minute chart, I would say that'd be pretty bullish. And then also what I saw today is when I bought another call, we have two July 11th calls, 460 strike price. I had good conviction to do that because I saw that the 9 EMA on the 15-minute chart crossed over the 21 EMA, and you can look. Let's go to the 30-day here. So you can look back in the past and see that that 9 EMA, when it crosses over the 21 or crosses under it, it's usually a pretty strong buy or sell signal. And you can see back when SPY was ripping, once that 9 EMA crossed over that 21, it crossed over it pretty early down here. Yeah, so I mean, it crossed over it at like 418. And then by the time SPY was at 430, it barely crossed over it, but that was kind of a fake out. It held it. And then SPY goes up to 443. It still crossed over once, but it held it again. And then it crossed over it at 448. And I mean, if you would have sold right there at 448, you would have saved yourself a little downside because then SPY goes all the way at 443 and then it crosses back over at 446. So you buy back in a little cheaper, and it kind of just sticks above that. It's usually a pretty strong indicator of when a good time to buy or sell is. So it hasn't crossed over that since, let's see, it hasn't crossed over that since the 4th. Yeah, just the fourth. And when it did that, it climbed the entire day. That was that last big bull day we had. So that's a pretty strong crossover. It wasn't able to cross it over these past 3 days, so I'm liking that. I think that's a good sign. I mean, there was some pretty crazy buying volume there at the end of the day too. Overall, it wasn't a very high volume day, but that's typically how it is when it's a green day. It's usually the red days where the volume gets really crazy. But yeah, it was just a really strong finish for SPY. It really would have gone if Nasdaq was cooperating, but we didn't get that. So tomorrow, let's go at 50 minutes. So we have resistance up here. This resistance line that is kind of in. I mean, it's not that strong of an indicator because we've only gone down like very little on SPY compared to the Nasdaq. So I would expect we'll test that resistance line, maybe bounce off of it, maybe pull back to 448. But if we test that, break it immediately, then we'll probably go to test 453, and then if we break that, we'll probably go and test 458, so on. That's to the upside, but to the downside, we opened below 448. I would expect that it'll come down here and try to test this 50-day simple moving average, 446, and then on the 30-minute chart. Oh, that's the 15-minute. And then we'll probably come and test the another key level, this 200 EMA on the 30-minute chart, 448. So it could be a choppy ass day. We might chop. I'd love to see that 50 moving average, which coincidentally, that's another really strong indicator. The system I like to use. It's a good sell or buy indicator on the S&P if it crosses, if the price crosses below or crosses above that indicator. It's usually a good sign of where it's about to go after that. So today you can see it tried to break it. It did break it once, resisted hard. We got that upside down green candle, inverted green candle, and then the next 3-minute candle right after that tried to break above it, couldn't, and then we shredded down. And that is a pretty ugly closing candle. Let's see the hourly. Yeah, an inverted red candle on the hourly is never really a very bullish uh, candle to close the day on, especially after this like crazy action we've had on SPY. It tells me that it tried to go up, but it resisted hard and then pulled back. But we still have SPX above 4,500, so yeah, feeling pretty good about SPY. Um, but yeah, other than that, I mean, if we can't hold that level 448.90, and then we might go back down, retest 445, and if that one doesn't hold, then I would expect 440 to the downside. But then another strong level. Now we have a very strong level here where it double bottomed was 443.50. So if that doesn't hold, then I'd really be convinced that we're going down to 440. So yeah, based off that rally at the end of the day, I would say SPY's looking pretty good to the upside. It's got its we had our higher high over here on SPY at 462. We broke that resistance at 457, made the higher high at 462, and now we have a higher low here just on like the overall daily chart. Or no, let's do the 4 hour. So yeah, we got our higher low here on the 4 hour, so that would lead me to believe we're going to try to find a higher high or at least enter a consolidation pattern where we're not just completely tanking. And yeah, it might consolidate. We might get a bit of a bull flag or something, and then next leg for a SPY. So take a look at Nasdaq. Uh, so Nasdaq was pretty sluggish today. It couldn't really get the momentum like SPY got. That just tech in general has just been getting bled recently, so it's going to take a lot of momentum to push the Nasdaq up. But it didn't double bottom like SPY did. It made a lower low today at 348.69, and then once SPY got going, it pushed up with it, but it was unable to get up to the level where it would start filling its gap, 356.94, and it kind of just hit 356 and bounced off of it pretty hard. Let's see if I can find some better levels here. A key level I've been looking at that has been a strong support slash resistance sort of here these past few days for the Nasdaq has been 352.45. That was the level that we opened up. Let's see. Yeah, we opened above it and we had a big bounce off of it, and then we got that super long-legged doji on the 15-minute candle, and we pulled down, and when we broke that level it really started dumping, and then after it found the bottom of that valley right there, it bounced up hard. It broke that level hard, retested it, and then bounced hard off of it. So yes, or tomorrow to the downside, I'll be looking to see if we don't gap down below that level. I'll be looking to see if it can hold that level. If not, we'll probably see more downside. We could potentially see 341 for the Nasdaq would be the next key fib level I have here. Um, yeah, there's no gaps or anything on the Nasdaq. 345, that's a past support we had. So 345, and then that doesn't hold, then we'll probably see 341. Um, but to the upside, obviously hoping that we can push up past 357, and then we have that big gap to fill all the way to 359. Not that big, about a 2/3 of a percent for the Qs, but that would be the best upside move that it can make. It really, all these big tech names have gaps to fill. So if Nasdaq goes to fill that, I expect SPY will really rip off of that because SPY's got the upward momentum going. So yeah, pretty much just hoping we can see that from the Nasdaq tomorrow. And then also, of course, that next key level for the Nasdaq is 361, which is just barely. The gap fills basically at 360, so 361 is pretty much the next key level after that. A lot of just like psych levels, obviously, and yeah, there's just been a lot of selling on the Nasdaq. It's just the way the market is right now. Everyone's worried about interest rates. Interest rates are obviously going to hit the growth sector the most, and the growth sector is obviously going to be tech. So everyone's taking their money out. Not everyone, but a lot of people just selling out of that, going into value stocks, Costco, Walmart, Kroger, Coca-Cola, like all these retail names that aren't gonna, that are flush with cash but aren't going to get nailed by the more expensive debt that companies take on as a result of higher interest rates. So yeah, Nasdaq has really sold off much harder than SPY has, and hopefully that does not continue. I'm liking the way this chart looks. We have, yeah, so just like SPY, this I love this 200-day EMA on the 30-minute chart. It's right It's tapped it twice now. It's resisted perfectly off of that. And it tapped it twice again today and resisted off of it pretty hard. So that's why I'm not really convinced we're just going to go straight up here. We could go back down, test 352.50, and then push back up since we were unable to break that 200 EMA on the 30-minute chart. And that's basically, if we break that, we go to fill the gap. So that's a very strong indicator on this. And then, of course, the 50-day simple moving average right here at 358.74. If we go to fill that gap, we shouldn't have a problem hitting that, but that's another indicator I like to use on the Nasdaq. It's a good buy or sell indicator. Yeah, so just the gap to fill is basically what I'm looking for Nasdaq, and then to the downside, I'll be looking to see if we can hold 352.60 or 352.50, whatever it is, and can't hold that. I expect we go lower. Let's look at some of the big tech guys. We got Apple. Apple, I mean, basically the same chart as the Nasdaq, just has the gap to fill the upside. It has this strong support here at 171-ish, around there, 170.70. Uh, I mean, it broke it today. It broke it in one big candle here on the 30-minute chart, but then we got a huge green candle to push it out of there. So that tells me people like that. They like that level for buyers. And we're probably, if we go back to retest it, I hope there'd be another bounce, and then we go to fill the gap. But the gap isn't huge on Apple, but I expect, I mean, Apple, when it goes to fill its gaps, it really rips into them. So I expect if we get up to 173.62, we'll really shred up to 174.43. So Not that big of a gap, but definitely worth watching. Everyone sees it. Uh, yeah, it's also that support that 200-day, 30-minute, the 30-minute 200-day EMA. White line right there. Let's see here. I want to take a look at. No wait. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's pretty money for Apple. We broke above it back on the 17th of March, and that was back at $160. And once it broke that, it went straight up to basically 180. So it broke under that, and we haven't really fallen that much under it. Reclaimed it again today. We got back over it, and it looks like it could be a good support level. I'll keep my eye on it. But yeah, otherwise for Apple, I mean, I'm not. There's not really a good like support line, I guess. I mean, you could say we're basically just bouncing around in this channel right here. It's almost like a megaphone channel we got. Yeah, so I mean, the top of this support channel would be like 176.60-ish, 176 flat probably. I would expect Apple will meet some resistance there. It well, maybe have some trouble breaking that, but if we do break through that, that would be breaking out of this channel, taking us to the upside, and then to the downside. I would expect if it can't hold this price level here at 169.50, that would also be about where the bottom line on this channel is, and if it breaks down that, I would expect our leg lower to the downside. Let's do AMD. So AMD, just like every other tech stock, has two gaps to fill to the upside. AMD, it retested its previous support of about 100 to $101 here today. It bounced hard off of it. All these tech stocks, they all found a really strong support and bounced hard off of them, but just couldn't really get much momentum. So AMD's another one. We have this here. I mean, we had this resistance line that we broke and didn't really do much off of it. So I can't really get like a clear resistance line on AMD at the moment. Because it kind of just it's really dipped so hard it's hard to say. But yeah, we just got it's got a tiny barely has a gap. It almost filled its gap above 106 to hardly even 106.15. So the gap is not very consequential there for AMD. There is a notable gap, which is also right below that fib level, 116.60. That's a much bigger gap, up to 118.50. So AMD is probably going to bounce pretty hard if the rest of the semiconductor uh, index wants to follow along. They've just been really, really dying off recently. That's just another thing. They're a growth sector, and people are scared of growth now because of interest rates. So its good friend Nvidia is also, but I also I have this resistance line on Nvidia that I didn't even notice, but it's very interesting today. Bam, these three candles on the 30-minute chart wick up perfectly to it. Just bam, smacked it, drop, smacked it, drop, and then today we got the, like I didn't even draw this. I draw this yesterday. Like it hit this resistance line perfectly, literally 10 cents off of it, and bounced hard off of it. So Nvidia also gap to fill. Gonna need the momentum from the semis that they have not been getting these past few days. I expect if we can open above 244.50 tomorrow and hold that line, it'll probably go to fill its gap, which the gap is a ways up. It's still up at 253, so it's got $10 to go. But it can do that in one whole day. It's Nvidia. It can do crazy things. So if it gets some momentum going, and these semiconductors, people have been loading up on calls on them. There's been a lot of calls getting traded. I know people are getting ready for the people are getting ready for that next leg up on these semis. So I will definitely extend this resistance line or activate it. Yeah, there we go. Extending you. There. And look at that. That resistance line is going to be like right where that key level is. So now we just have to break that key level. And we should be good to go for NVIDIA. To the downside, if we retest that level, break down, we've been in a bit of a, let's see, get a little channel drawn here. Not even that, that's really not much of a channel, is it? Yeah, I guess that's a pretty nifty channel. So if we can't hold that level I mentioned, we'll probably see 230 for NVIDIA. Um, tasks. I don't believe there's any gaps for NVIDIA. Nah, no gaps on its chart really. There's a little tiny one down here actually. Oh, I'll be damned, a little tiny. So yeah, it does have a little tiny gap to fill from 231 basically down to 230. So if we approach 230, I expect it'll rush down to it, and that's just a big psych level 230 for NVIDIA. It's way below its 200-day EMAs. So that's why I'm hesitant to load up more here. It's still like way below those. I want to see it closer, and I want to see it actually break those. It's getting close to its. This is the 5 minute. I want to do the 15. Yeah, they're just this stock is just so oversold. It's so far off of these moving averages. So that's not, I mean, it'll break that. It's basically right where that gap fills, that 200-day EMA. So I want to see it above 258. I know it's at 242 right now. That's quite a ways, but NVIDIA can definitely do that within a day. So fill that gap. I'll look for 264 for the next level up and 276 eventually after that. We do have a bit of a resistance line. It's kind of weak. It doesn't really mean much, but it's about at 270. So that's about what NVIDIA is doing. It's just chirping or chopping around in this little channel these past couple days. I just wanted to go to fill that gap, but it's kind of just going to depend on what every other semiconductor is doing. We got onsemi here, proud member of the S&B index, onsemiconductor. Take a look, see here, what's this guy doing? So onsemi has just been taking the stairs down to the basement and has not found. I guess it has found some support. We have this big resistance line. But then even down here we have an even more steep resistance line, which it did break through today actually, so that's pretty bullish. Take a look at the hourly actually. So on semi, ooh man, I didn't even notice that. We did break support. No, we didn't. We broke this double bottom where this is where it double bottomed a couple weeks ago at $53 and rocketed up to 68. So it did make a lower low on that end. We got down to about 52.50, but major support level is definitely $51 to about $50, and we're still a couple bucks off of that. If we look to go up to the upside, there's a gap to fill. Like every other stock right now, they got that gap from 55.17 up to 55.50, so barely even worth mentioning that gap. It's so small, but it's there. So we'll hopefully break this key line here at 54.50 and then go up to 55.14 and fill that gap. And then that gap is right below a big key level of 56.29 that we'll have to break through to continue up to the upside. But before that, we'll probably meet this resistance line, and that is going to be a test if it can break out of that, because that is the main decline it is in right now. It has just been getting absolutely hammered from 68.70. It's been going straight down, and we're all the way down at 54. So I'm gonna drop my desk down here. I gotta take a sit. Yeah, that's on semi, just another semiconductor. It's dependent on the rest of the industry, but hopefully it doesn't sell off as much as it is. I don't see It's another more speculative company. It doesn't really make that much money. It doesn't have crazy amount of cash on hand, and it's not gonna love the higher borrowing costs from the interest rates. So people are selling it off, and I think that's a mistake. I see a lot in the company. And based off of its chart, it's about at support. We're getting there right at 51 bucks. Look at the 4 hour here. Yeah, so the 4 hour, not a whole lot. It's kind of just in this channel basically that's been in since the start of the year, since January. That was basically its peak, was the first trading day of the year. And ever since then, 71 bucks. It's just been chopping around, so we're about back at the support, and I think we'll bounce off of that should the market conditions. And that just shows you how much more like semis are getting hammered compared to the rest of the Nasdaq. Like the Nasdaq is only about where was the bottom? So the bottom of the Nasdaq was like 317-ish, and the Nasdaq right now is at 354, and ON is about where it was when the Nasdaq was at like 320. So it's just like way lower than where the Nasdaq, like where it should be compared to the Nasdaq. Like it's just crazy how hard these semiconductor companies are getting sold off. So usually a big sell-off on an industry that's not going anywhere, that has a lot of value, means a big bounce. So I'm anticipating that. Just gonna watch for the gap fill, watch for a break at 56.33, and then after that, basically the sky's the limit. It didn't really have much strong support. Strong support, I guess, would be around 58.60. And yeah, just have to break all those key levels and keep pushing it back up. I will become worried if we cannot hold $51. That was the previous. And then of course, these market makers, they play such games. So there's a gap to fill from its past earnings at that it made at the end of October. So it gapped up hard off of those earnings, had crazy good earnings, and it opened that gap, and that gap is still there, and that's exactly where it has found support. It went so close to about to fill that gap, so that is why I'm very worried if we break under that, that is going to really tumble and definitely fill that gap, because it's just one of those things. Everyone knows the gap is there and everyone's waiting for it. So that's why it bounced so hard off of that support, because people didn't want it to go down. People thought it was a good level, good buying opportunity, and it bounced off. So if it is weak and goes towards that gap, I will be worried. But that's usually just it's just dependent on if it can hold 51 bucks. Like that's really it. It won't go into the gap if it can hold that. What else do we got? Let's look at Microsoft. So Microsoft has, I like Microsoft. I think it's a good upside play right now. It had better or relative strength to the rest of the big tech companies today. It went up about 0.6% compared to like Apple and Google, which really basically went sideways all day. Um, it's about to break that 200 EMA here on the 30-minute chart, and if it does, it'll go up to the next key level 307, fill the gap from there all the way up to 309. So notable gap on Microsoft. It's sitting right above support like everything else right now. Support here would definitely be 295. And then obviously $300, huge cycle level. Don't even have to draw that one out. Everyone knows 300 is big for Microsoft. And what did it do today? It basically, yeah, I mean it broke $1 below it, but then it got bought up huge. So people want it above 300. That's basically all there is on Microsoft. I'm not seeing much of a chart pattern on Microsoft. It's not really in a channel or anything. Kind of is if you want to. You can kind of draw a support line there, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, it's really nothing. I mean, it just got like a really wide support, really wide resistance. So, uh, yeah, to the downside, if it can't hold 295, I'm convinced it'll see 290 next key level. What else was I trading today? Oh, Coinbase. I want to see Coinbase. Coinbase. All right, like everything else, it's funny how these things work out. It's a lot like semiconductors. Minor companies, crypto sympathy companies have just been getting absolutely hammered during the sell-off. It peaked at 206 and it's dropped about 20%, $40 down to clear down to 160. So it found strong support at 160. It hasn't tested that multiple times, so if it goes to test that, it'll probably break it. But if it finds strong support at 160.50 here, maybe make a double bottom and bounce off of that. That's just for that candle wick down. So that's why I'm not convinced it's that strong of a support, because it hasn't gotten to test it multiple times. It's only touched it once and that was it. But still has a gap to fill. I mean, it just, a lot of it is based off Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is kind of, it broke a really key level it had at $44,400, and since then it hasn't really done much, kind of just chopping around, going down. So, of course, Coinbase needs like the Nasdaq to be going up to go up also, but it also needs Bitcoin. So a lot is depending on that, but it's just in a terrible, terrible downtrend right now. Not even really. I mean, I guess we got a bit of a channel here I could draw out. So just in like this megaphone channel where the lines are branching away from one another, which is not very bullish, but it is sitting just like AMD and multiple other stocks. Uh, it also has that gap to fill right there. I forgot about that gap. Do not forget about the gap. So it also has a gap at 159 to the key level of 155.90. So if we can't hold where this previous low today was at 160.50, it'll definitely go to fill that gap. And I expect that once it fills that gap, it'll find strong support at 156. To the upside, we'll have to retake 169.50 and then have to push up to 174, where there is a gap to fill to the upside up to 176.39. And then once that's filled, we got 180 basically. And that once we get up to 180, that'll probably be right around where resistance is in this channel it's in, and that'll be a big test if it can break that. It's also super far away from its 200-day EMA on the 15-minute chart, on the 30-minute chart. Like this one is really just on the 4-hour chart where we're officially at oversold. Like relative strength index, this has been so oversold since yeah, not even since like, where is this? January 24th. Yeah, it's just getting wrecked, just absolutely dumped on. So like everything else, if we're gonna get sold off that hard, it's gonna have a hard recovery, like a very fast and quick movement to the upside, hopefully, if we can fill the gaps. And if Bitcoin cooperates, which it looks like it wants to, but kind of speculative. So yeah, that's Coinbase. I'm not gonna like open any puts. I mean, it's support, absolute rock bottom support is 150.12. If we can't hold that, I'm worried, because being that this is an IPO, so it's not like I can look back 5 years and see where it's found support in the past, because it has no past, and 150.12 is its absolute rock bottom. Break through that, and we're in price discovery range, and bears love that, because then it's like, oh baby, how low can we get this to go, and how scared can we get the shareholders that are holding this thing? So I'll be a little worried if we can't hold 150. And then the big one, Facebook. Facebook didn't do a lot today. It was looking weak, but here we go. I was expecting it to get down to this level, 218.15. It almost got there. That's a very key level on its chart. Let's see what we're doing here. Yeah, so we about tested that level 218.52 and bounced hard off of that. That'll be a level that if we go down to the downside and we find support there, we'll probably bounce. If we go down there, break through it, we'll probably see a big drop down to 212 would probably be the next. Yeah, 212 and 208's point of control here. Yeah, that's a good point of control on Facebook. I really like that level of 208. I don't like it to like go down to that, but that would be a really good buying opportunity for Facebook. But yeah, it bounced off that pretty solid level of 218.30, convincingly bounced off of it, and then look at that. I had this level drawn out already. I love when I draw out these levels and it follows it perfectly. So this was a strong level we had here at 224, basically $225 for Facebook. I say that because in these past couple days, we gapped down on Tuesday. We broke through the key level hard break on 226.15, and then we fell below 225 and we went up and tested it broke through a couple times, sold off hard below it, and then we've just wicked up, it's wicked up to it multiple times, and then you'll never guess it, but then today we bounce off this key level I have drawn out and we wicked up to the cent right at 225, dude. I like I didn't even draw that out today. I swear to flip, like that was there. That was just my key level I set, and I love when I get those right. But yeah, and then look at that. That 200-day EMA is right at that key level, dude. No fucking way. But what I do see here actually is it broke its. Oh, that's awesome. So it broke its 15-minute 50 simple moving average. It broke through that, and then we wicked down to it, and it couldn't break it at the end of the day. So I do like that. I do like that. It also has the same 15-minute 9 EMA and 21 EMA crossover. So that is looking pretty fucking good, dude. Facebook's looking good right now. I really like where Facebook's at. Um, yeah, so we just gotta take over that 225 level, push it up to 226. Then we need the key level 226.20 basically. So those are gonna come in the same move, and then past that we just have 229, and then a big fat gap to fill up at 231. So that's about a 1% gap on Facebook. So to the upside, that's what I'm seeing. Is we just gotta break that 200 EMA, hold that 50 simple moving average, break 225, break 226, and push up to 229, and then we're looking good. I mean, then we'll come back up to this resistance line, which by then will probably be the next key level of 237.50. God, I love these resistance. Man, that's just gonna be perfectly right there up with it. Damn. So yeah, that's about that for Facebook. Just got the same story as every other big tech stock. All the fangs, they got these gaps, and they're gonna get filled. Eventually, they're gonna get filled. That's what always happens for these fangs, especially when it's to the upside. If it's to the downside, you never know. It could just keep going up. But we know Facebook's gonna go back up. That's just how it is. Um, that's why I hold it. So once we fill that gap, push up, gotta take 237.49, and then obviously past that, there's not really any support past that because Facebook was still selling off hard, but very hard after their earnings, and they sold off, gap down to 252, and then just sold off right through this key level. So if we can break through that, that would be huge because then it's wide open right towards the gap. And then obviously when we're in the gap, we hit pay dirt and it's just gonna rip through that. It'll find levels of uh, let's really zoom out. Like it'll find levels where it can't just plow through. It's not just gonna. I mean, Facebook's a big company. It's not just gonna go straight through it. Mark out some key levels here. So yeah, we got a support here at like 277, so could have trouble there. We got a key level about 253, but once we're there, that's about where that gap is. So that's basically it. Then other than that, it just kind of ripped through there. So yeah, I'm not really seeing many more levels after that. Once we go to fill that gap, it's gonna do it quickly. What do we got next? How long am I going? Oh, we got about 40 minutes. Let's see. What else? What else? What else? take a look at Baba. Everyone's favorite stock, Baba. Here we go. So today we filled that gap, that big gap that we had to the downside. I missed it because it went through it almost immediately at open. Like it went to close it super fast, and I don't like just jumping straight into something at open. I regret doing it for Baba because of course the one time I don't do it is the one time it just goes to fill the gap immediately. And so now that we filled the gap, we found support at like 102. Um, it's at support right now. Resistance will be up here at like 112 basically. After we break that, we could see the next leg up, and then the next big level is 130. Yeah, I'd say about 128.50. 130 psych level, of course, but yeah. Then in order to like when you really zoom out on the chart, if we really want to see it in an uptrend, which means a higher high, higher low, we gotta see it break here on the weekly chart. We gotta see it break 140, and then if we see a pullback, and then that pullback stops at like 120-ish or even above 100, we'll have our higher high, higher low for the since first time since October of 2020, right? Yeah, October 2020. Yeah, so that I mean that's the power of the trend, you know. At the top of the mountain, that was that higher high. Then we pulled back to 211. We got our lower low, and then came up to 275. We got our lower high. Came down to 200, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and still we're in that huge trend. There's this massive resistance line on this weekly chart. And in order to break that, actually, if it breaks 120, then I'll probably be convinced that yeah, honestly about 120. Yeah, if it can break 120, I really like it there. But it's Baba, so it's a big question mark. Just a big question mark. Earnings on May 12th. It makes a shit ton of money. Everyone knows it's got a bunch of money, but it's China, so it comes with the territory. If China was not a communist dictatorship, I'm sure everyone would love this company. So yeah, that's Baba. How about Mara? Mara, one of my favorite Bitcoin companies. So Mara, just like everything else, we are up at support. Key level, it bounced. Damn it, wicked down to that key level perfectly today. Whew. I did not see that. Wow. So yeah, we wicked down a key level there at 2270, bounced up to 24 with the end of day rally that we had. Um, it has a gap to fill upside at 2550. Not a huge gap, but that's also the next key level that it needs to break. So I imagine that'll be where we see Merit get some strength, hopefully, should Bitcoin want to cooperate. Other than that, not much else going on with Mara. That's about the only gap it has to fill on its chart. If we can't hold 2275, then I'm sure we'll see $20 again for Mara. But yeah, that's about it. Just overall, I'm looking to play both ways tomorrow. I mean, Spy is kind of just. I'll take another gander here at Spy. Sorry. Oh, I gotta draw this level out. So Spy is just kind of in this channel, and we're going back up towards resistance, which is essentially 250 or 452. So if we break that, I'll be looking for more upside, 450, 350, and then eventually 458. To the downside, if we can't hold 445, we'll probably come down to resistance, which, oh, look at that, right at 440. If you consider this, I mean, it's basically the channel it's in. This is where it's been wicking down to. So if we were a few days over, that would be probably like 439 would be the next level of support if we can't hold 443.50 on SPY to the downside. Um, just quickly look at the NASDAQ again, sorry. And Nasdaq, yeah, if we can't break 356.90 and go to fill that gap, I would expect we retest 352 and then probably get pulled down to about 348-ish and find more support there because that's kind of just the downtrend we're in. We're finding lower lows on this mini little micro trend. But yeah, that's about it. Just exposed to the upside mostly for the account. Um, Not much to say about Costco. It's in price discovery mode. It's in all-time highs and just keeps going up. It broke 600 today, which is just nuts. Even opened on a gap actually, so might be worth looking at that gap to the downside for Costco below 588. But it's just been so ridiculously strong. I would not expect it to go for that gap for quite a while. Ooh, Roblox. That's a good one. Roblox. What a nightmare this stock is. Oh god, that wick. I fell so hard for that insane wick it had on that first opening candle. So yeah, it wicked up hard through this level at 46.31. That's what convinced me to buy a call here. And it just shot up to 47. It pulled back a little bit. Can't see it on this, but yeah, here we go. So I was looking at the 5 minute. Obviously, we opened above this level and we found support at this level, but this is within like the first 5 minutes, so it's very volatile. You don't know what's going to happen. And we shot up, pulled back on this little red candle, and this is where I bought my call. And then immediately went straight down below support, below that level. It, damn, that was beautiful. It did actually right there. So it goes up to try to retake that level, wicks above it hard, which is also view up, and was unable to break it. Wicks, oh man, big red candle below, and it was just in the dump for the rest of the day. But then it kind of had its V-shaped recovery like everything else did. But yeah, I'm not really a fan of the Roblox, so just an interesting chart it has. If we see it down at $36, I'll probably go short on it. But yeah, that's about it for the stock market. We'll see what tomorrow comes or brings us. I think it'll be green. I think SPY will reclaim 450, hold it, and we will break out of this little 3 day downtrend that we're in and go back for the next leg up. That's stock analysis from Thomas Bay with SMB Trading. We'll catch you guys on the recap tomorrow. Peace.